Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by the great, the honorable Jeff Marchiafava.
Hansen, you don't know how hard I had to fight not talking through that intro after you told us not to.
And we have Sergio Vasquez.
On cue, it's me talking at the appropriate time.
That's right, and Kyle Hilliard's here too.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome, everybody. This is kind of the biggest E3 day. It doesn't feel like it because we're not in LA and sweating. And for me, I'm not lugging video equipment around and trying to.
And it's a Sunday.
Donut King in our bellies.
Right. That's usually the go-to place. Yeah, but we're here checking out all of the great E3 news because we have had a lot since the last episode of the MinnMax Show podcast, which if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for being here. Even if you're watching us live, thank you for being here. It's a special live episode. You can always subscribe to the MinnMax Show podcast on your favorite podcast app. It's not Patreon exclusive, so I always appreciate if you subscribed, left a review, told a friend, all that fun stuff. But since the last episode of the podcast, there was the Ubisoft press conference, colloquially called Ubisoft Forward. A ton of news there. News all over the place. Devolver technically squeezed in there. And then this morning, as of time of this recording, was the Xbox and Bethesda press conference. And then also the Square Enix press conference. And that's not it for us because we're also coming back on Tuesday for a live reaction for Nintendo. And then one more bonus episode of the MinnMax Show podcast after Nintendo's big press conference on Tuesday, which I'm very much looking forward to. But honestly, who needs Nintendo? With a plate so full, who needs those schmucks?
Me.
Oh,
I would like it, please.
Yeah, I also would really like a lot of Zelda news. But
but I have nice things to say about all the other conferences. That's not to diminish them. I just like Nintendo a lot.
Yeah, no, there's been some amazing ones. It seems like Microsoft and Bethesda joining forces is. It's not even a secret juggernaut. We all should have probably seen it coming, but Leo, who's there for our live reaction, also had the take of it's so nice that now Bethesda, where year by year, it was always a little bit iffy about how much do they have to show, how much are they gonna be front and center, and when
how
they're
much
just
Andrew WK are gonna have to listen to pad this thing out.
Yeah, totally. But then when it's joining forces with Microsoft, that just makes for an amazing conference where they have so much to show, so many details to go into. So that's definitely the start of the show. And then Ubisoft was solid, and it seems like Square is at the bottom of the pack if you're interested in the official ranking of where we're at. But Jeff, what do you think about E3 so far, man?
I really enjoyed Microsoft's show today.
Yeah,
I didn't see Ubisoft or Square, but this was the one that really got me excited and made me really excited for the coming months, and I guess through 2022 there were a lot of announcements for. But
technically there's a 2023 in there. A very small 2023 that was hidden there, but I love it. Okay, normally we go around the horn and say all right, our third favorite thing of the show, second favorite thing of the show. Let's shake it up a little bit and just have it be whatever you're excited to talk about. Sergio Vasquez, you look like a man who's excited about some games. What would you like to talk about? What's at the top of your heap, do you think?
Yeah, I was like back when we were still doing the top three structure, I think I found it was pretty hard for me to find a really solid number one. I don't think there was anything here that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to play this. This is so exciting for me. But there was a lot of stuff that it's a lot of fun stuff that I think would otherwise be fighting for second place, I think. And I think to me, probably the most interesting one was Redfall.
Oh.
In terms of a thing I was not expecting, because I think with them having their hands full with Deathloop at this point, it definitely felt like they didn't need to announce it this early, but I'm glad they did.
Okay, so let's take a step back. So this is during the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. This is Arcane Austin. Previously, they developed Dishonored and Prey. This is their new game, not to be confused with Deathloop, which Arcane Lyon over there in France is creating. But Redfall is a name we're all going to be looking forward to, and it's releasing summer 2022. How would you describe what we saw there, Serial?
I mean, we didn't see any real gameplay, but it definitely feels like it's going to be maybe Left 4 Dead-esque in that it is a co-op shooter where you're fighting off waves of vampires, not zombies. But it does feel like even from that trailer, you saw a lot of powers. So I think that's what's going to set it apart in that field where it's it's got like various different characters you can play as. I don't know if it's going to be character classes or custom, but it definitely feels like everyone's going to have their own abilities. It seemed like they were going to go class based from the trailer, so that I think is going to spice things up. I think I just like arcane games in general. They always seemed like they're pretty much up my alley all the time. But I think to me the thing that kind of docked it a few points is I'm not a fan of like the tone and personality of the trailer.
There's a section where one of the characters calls another one Edgar Allan Bro. It's like, okay, yeah, that's the tone we got here.
There's a lot of the
good writing
stuff that I think is like kind of aggravating in stuff like Borderlands or like some of the like Marvel movies where it's like characters acting very casually about being in like life-threatening situations.
Right.
Where it's just like they're just kind of making all this like banter about whatever, and like even the trailer is like, oh, the shit or whatever is like how they got into this, and then like the shit or like they very much segment it as like, oh, this is like a really kind of like tongue-in-cheek personality, which I don't think has been a thing for Arcane. So I'm very curious to see if like it ends up being kind of grating, which is what that stuff always does for me. And that's kind of, I think, what has prevented it from being at the top of my list.
Sure. So just I think you called it like a Left 4 Dead maybe like, and I think it seems like they introduced it as an open world co-op game. So it seems like it's kind of Microsoft's take on a Borderlands. And instead of fighting a bunch of Mad Max villains out in the desert this time around, it seems to really be focusing on big old vampires. Everybody's favorite. Get some vampires up in there.
Yeah. And I mean, even at the end of the trailer, you saw like someone who's a big bad, right?
Yeah. I like that we all kind of walked away with our own impressions of what that game is supposed to be. I guess I saw it more as kind of just more action focused, open world, arcane game. I don't know that it will be like a shooter looter or necessarily as goal oriented as Left 4 Dead is, but I just kind of, I guess my takeaway was like, oh, like a more actiony Dishonored, but you were playing with friends this time around.
Yeah, they definitely pitch it in the setup. Phil Spencer pitched it as being an immersive shooter still, which is very much that Arcane pedigree. So I'm curious what that means in this context.
Yeah, and everything that we saw, I mean, it was all cutscene stuff, but you could definitely tell that each character kind of had their own specific powers, and you can see how they would work within kind of the Arcane framework of like, this lady can summon magical elevators that shoots everyone up in the air. And that's just like a very easy mobility kind of power that you could see in a normal Arcane game. It's just a little weirder here. And you had invisibility and things like that. And I'm super, like, I have enjoyed all of their games in the past as well. This would probably be my number one as well. But I've always I like watching people who are super good at those games play and combo all those things. And so it's the most exciting thing to me is, okay, well, now we can have 4 different people or however many people, and they all have their own abilities, and you can figure out how to combo all of them together. And that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Is it going to be this versus Suicide Squad? Basically, are they going to be kind of similar? And like, is it going to be like that? There's going to be teams that are like, I'm more Redfall, I'm more Suicide Squad.
And then
I'm Back for Blood. Like,
I'm a Gotham Knights person.
There's so many times that like genres crop up at the same time where it's like they all feel like they're kind of similar. I mean, when the games come out, it's a totally different story. But right now, it feels like we're getting a lot of these 4-player cooperative kind of, action games.
Well, there's a lot of kind of the Left 4 Dead like. It seems like those are having a big moment. But the fact that it's a little bit different. But I hadn't thought about that Suicide Squad analogy. But yeah, you're totally right. I definitely think that's going to be a similar wheelhouse for a lot of folks. And they announced that Redfall is going to be exclusive to PC and Microsoft, and then also that Starfield, is absolutely going to be exclusive as well. But yeah, Redfall, open world, takes place in Massachusetts, fighting a lot of vampires, and you seem to have like a sunlight gun. What was that, Kyle? Do you understand what I was looking at?
Yeah, sunlight gun thing. Recently apocalyptic. They still seemed like they were kind of like, it could go back to normal, which I think is kind of an interesting idea, having just lived through a period of my life where I was like, I think we'll go back to normal at some point.
Yeah, make it happen. Redfall, everybody. That's the name we have to remember, which is the fun of E3. Learning new names, folks. Kyle, what do you think you're most excited to talk about?
I am most excited to talk about Somervillle from
it.
Jump Ship. I've been following this game for a while. It's funny, when they showed Planet of Lana at the Summer Games Fest,
Yeah.
which everyone was like, this reminds me of Inside Limbo. And it actually prompted me to be like, oh, I need to check on Somervillle. Like, I haven't heard anything about that in a while. And it was like 3 or 4 days ago, I went and made sure I was signed up for their newsletter, which is funny that now there's like, today, then we got, at the time of this recording, we got a new trailer for it. And I mean, it's just that Limbo Playdead super fan inside of me. It's so the company is Jump Ship. It's co-founded by Dino Patti, who was a co-founder of Playdead, who has since left, but he was the director of development on Limbo and the executive producer on Inside. He is an executive producer on Somervillle.
Okay.
And the game is being directed by this guy that I don't know. His name is Chris Olsen, and I was looking him up, and he's more from the world of film. He's like an animator. He worked on IMDb. He worked on like John Carter of Mars. He was like an animator on that movie. And then he also animated on Legend of Guardians, which is kind of a punchline children's movie.
That's
that
one of
Zack
like
Snyder directed. It's about the owls, Guardians of Ga'Hoole.
Oh yeah.
But like, that movie looks amazing. Like, yeah, I've not, even like, just watch a trailer for it and it's kind of undeniable how good that looks. But then he also did, on IMDb, he did previs on Avengers 2 and Edge of Tomorrow. So he's like a film guy who does a lot of art, and he directed this game. And it's like, it's very scant, the details that we know in terms of what the game is about. But to me, it looks a lot like a very grounded alien invasion movie. Or not movie, but like, it looks like an alien invasion is happening, and you're just a small family of maybe a mother and a father and a child and a dog, just trying to survive while the world goes to hell, which seems like a really interesting premise, especially in one that might not have a lot of dialogue, I'm guessing, or if any. You know?
It's so weird that it looks so much like Inside. It seems like there's a little more depth instead of kind of mainly on that 2D plane.
Looks like you might have some 3D movement options, yeah.
Yeah, but it's weird to think about, how does it play, and what's the story if it's Inside largely, but with a family? Like, are we going to have to watch that family get ticked off one by one, or is it just going to be the happy core? And even though it looks dark and dour, everyone's making it through to the end.
Yeah, for sure we're going to be worried about that dog until that dog dies.
Oh, yeah.
Is how
sure.
that's going.
If you don't solve this puzzle in time, the Somervillle dog is going down hard.
Man.
Yeah.
But that's going to be...
looks young enough to like not be able to fully walk on their own, which I think is an interesting idea. Like, it looks like a kid that just learned to walk, which is like, I don't know. That's an interesting idea for a game, like having to manage that while stuff's going to hell. So that's. I mean, it feels kind of like the hipster.
That's fair, man. That's who
pick,
you are.
Like, we're not talking about.
That's the Kyle pick for sure.
I know.
Embrace
Like,
it.
even when that came up, everyone was like, "Oh, this is Kyle's so happy right now. I'm happy for him."
And I was very happy. Yeah. But like, the Bethesda, it's slipping my mind right now, which is insane. The Bethesda
Starfield
game, the Starfield, like, I'm very interested in that game, but I don't have a lot to say from it based on that trailer. You know what I mean? So it's hard to like dive deep into that one, but it's like, I'm excited that they have something to show for it. So yeah, Somervillle so far has been the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, that's going to be a console launch exclusive and coming in 2022 for that one. But I mean, since you brought it up, let's just jump right into this behemoth. It was a bold move, I thought, for Microsoft to open the press conference with Todd Howard on the stage. I mean, our boy Phil Spencer was not on that stage for Microsoft until like...
He took his time.
Yeah, till the very end. I thought it was a really nice sign, even just of like the confidence. Like, man, we got so much talent, so many people making so many awesome games. We don't need to bring out my lousy mug until the back end, basically, to announce a couple more things. But Starfield. Jeffem, what did you learn about Starfield today? The new Bethesda game.
Super little. And that's why it's, I mean, in terms of games that I want to play and that I'm going to be excited for and lose my mind over, I'm sure Starfield is above and beyond the number one of everything that we saw, except it was just a teaser. It was a cutscene kind of teaser of, a person getting into a mech kind of and talking about how we're going to the stars or starting a new civilization or something. And there was a ham cheese sandwich that looked pretty good.
Yeah,
but
you're really hung up on the sandwich, man.
Yeah, I really hope there's
man.
a lot of sandwich-based gameplay.
That sandwich had personality. Dang it.
It's interesting though, like that maybe this is the new model now for Bethesda games, is the super early teaser trailer, I guess, which is just kind of establishing, hey, we're working on a game called Starfield, which is what they announced years ago. And now this is kind of the tone teaser of establishing a couple things. Like it's very much not a slick version of the future. Things are breaking down. There's that helmet that said like not working properly. It kind of looks like a junky.
Do not use, I think, right?
Yeah, kind of a junky, a little more of a Star Wars approach in some ways to this angle of sci-fi. But then very much the tone is, okay, I mean, Todd Howard even said something about, it's all about hope and inspiration and like mankind daring to explore beyond the stars, all that type of thing. And we learned that there's an organization called Constellation. And Washington Post actually had a bonus video about the making of that trailer where Todd Howard shed a little bit more light, saying the Constellation is the last generation of space explorers. And in that trailer, they even set it up like you have discovered something that's like changing the way we travel through space. And so maybe it's like we've been traveling in space, but just kind of to Mars and putzing around, and then you develop faster than light travel. It feels very much like there is some big step that's being taken in space travel here. And that, and that making of, I believe, is where they established again that we've come to the beginning of mankind's final journey. So something big has happened and you're on the forefront of trying to explore new area in some ramshackle tech.
Yeah.
The thing
I was going to say the thing that kind of, the other reason I wasn't super excited about it is because the one planet they showed was just kind of a desert looking desolate planet that to me is like, I hope that's the planet you leave at the starting of the game and you go to an interesting world to explore, because that just kind of had more Fallout vibes than anything to me. Like I hope that this is a game where you're going to be, I hope it's more Star Trek than Fallout is, or I hope it's a little more fantastic. I hope you're interacting with other alien races and stuff, and that they're not trying to take too much of a serious survival RPG tack to it.
I feel like maybe the trailer. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I can't quite put my finger on why I had this thought watching it exactly, but looking at it, I was kind of like, and maybe it's just me hoping. It's like, is this going to be kind of like a curated No Man's Sky? You know what I mean? Like, will you be planet hopping and doing like really amazing traveling long distances, but not in a randomized world? Like each world will be sort of developed and have individual characters and like deep stories that you can find and stuff like that. Like, because that sounds cool to me. I like.
You're
like
describing Outer Worlds, Kyle.
Well,
I kind of am, yeah, a little bit.
I do feel though that like I think the tone of it definitely feels harder sci-fi than Outer Worlds, because I don't think they showed any aliens. So I think this is a world where the discovery of aliens would be pretty significant versus something like the Outer Worlds or Mass Effect, where it's just like, oh yeah, we've been living among aliens for a while now. And so that definitely seems like it's going to be closer in tone to that. But in terms of like structure, yeah, I still want to see what this game plays like, because I feel like for me, the Bethesda formula has kind of had diminishing returns, where it's like I loved Oblivion and I loved Fallout 3, but Skyrim and Fallout 4 for me didn't hit as hard. So I would love to see them like have that tech be a little stronger, like not have people clipping through doors and stuff. I know that's kind of like a common like thing to beat them up about, but like I think that it's time, like it's been so long since they've had like a proper kind of fresh start with something like this, that I would love to see. I would love to see like a larger evolution from Bethesda GameWorks than like, well, it's it's like Fallout in space, or like it's the Elder Scrolls in space.
Yeah, and they bill it as, in the opening, they say from Creation Engine 2. So they're very much trying to signal at least that it's a big tech change. I am always a little skeptical, because every new Bethesda game they've said, oh, we've rebuilt this engine, here we go. And so I'll believe it when I see it.
Modest improvements.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I would go one step above Cyril and say I don't just want to see that. I think they have to do that this time around.
Yeah.
I think the age, their tech has aged a lot in term. It's considering all the other open world RPG games that we get nowadays, all of which are much prettier and, the animation is much more fluid and everything, like everyone is playing Bethesda's game now at this point. Maybe not to the exact depth that Bethesda does, but they need to shore up some of their shortcomings with this one.
Yeah. By the way, people in the chat are saying that apparently Todd Howard did some interviews today, and he said, quote, "It's Skyrim in space." So,
did he really say that?
Multiple people are quoting him saying that, so we'll fact check it.
Yeah, then I think my excitement is somewhat muted by that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if it's like smaller worlds and you get to jump around to a couple of them, I think that's still going to be super exciting. But it's amazing to me that they called...
I don't want loading between planets. I don't want to get into a ship and select it on a menu and wait. I want to just fly to that planet. You know what I mean? That's like the big thing I want.
Yeah, but they called their shot saying it's coming out November 11th, 2022. And it sounded like Laura Bailey in the trailer doing the VO, but we'll see exactly how that works. And they also said in that behind-the-scenes video that they're like, we're really going to take people inside the game's development as we go along. So I'm curious to see what that means. Just regular, video diaries, or if it's going to be a new approach to that for transparency from Bethesda or what. But
yeah, this trailer felt very much like we need to show something from a Bethesda RPG, and this is as much as we have to show at this point.
Yeah,
like it was that level of teaser of like, we need something, guys. We can't just show another Starfield logo. So they showed us a little bit more, but it's still very open in terms of what this game is.
Yeah. Let's see. I'll throw one out there into the old pot. A game that we've talked about technically on the podcast before, but never with this name. This is, of course, Stranger of Paradise.
Final Fantasy Origin.
Final Fantasy Origin. Stranger of Paradise is not what I expected for the name of that game. Final Fantasy Origin sounds like a cool name for a game, but so this is...
It's Japanese subtitle.
That's that Nomura coming through.
I feel like they should have flipped it. Call it Final Fantasy Origin : Stranger of Paradise.
I do feel like Nomura is maybe
Come on.
The like Joker of Japan is just like, what if I made it twisted? And this was like his take of like, it can't be a normal title. It's got to be some dumb thing. So it's Stranger of Paradise, baby. It's the next Nomura joint.
Yep. So this is the game that we talked about before, where it's Team Ninja, that some of the leads behind Nioh. Also the developers of Ultimate Alliance 3, don't you forget.
Ninja Gaiden.
And Ninja Gaiden, of course. That they're making a game that, at least the leaks were saying this thing's going to be a lot like Nioh, which means it's going to be a lot like Souls. And so a lot of hype was built up about like, oh, Final Fantasy Souls, here we go. Final Fantasy Souls, we're getting it. And then we got the trailer today. Did that look like Final Fantasy Souls to you, Serial?
Not really. I feel like I think if someone who was not super familiar with that kind of subgenre saw like, here's the footage of the game that I saw, and it's like, oh, it kind of looked like Souls. I could see why someone would say that, but I think watching the trailer, it feels like it's kind of like that in name only, and that's like it's like here's the third person perspective action combat where you're not doing like air combos a la Devil May Cry. It definitely feels like it is action combat game, and people really only have two reference points for those kinds of games, which is Platinum games and From Software games, and people just kind of went with From Software versus Platinum.
To be fair, this was in a trailer. It's tough to get that tone across in a trailer, and there is a demo.
A lot of gameplay in that trailer, though.
Yeah, that's true. There's a demo out now on PlayStation 5 that I'm looking forward to checking out right after this, and so I think people have a better sense of it.
It's out right away?
Yeah, they said it was going to be June 24th in like an announcement shortly after, and then it came out today. And then now I'm seeing that people are saying all the files are corrupted, so people can't actually play the demo they downloaded.
What? Okay, so
they issued an update saying like, yeah, we're looking into it.
Oh boy,
which is part of a larger theme with Square today, I guess.
Joker strikes again.
So yeah,
a lot of people are attributing it to chaos because the whole point of that game is that you're trying to, I guess, murder chaos.
Yeah, so because it's Final Fantasy Origin, it does have the ties, like the rumors were hinting that it's connected to Final Fantasy 1, where Chaos is like the final boss of Final Fantasy 1, and then Garland is kind of the main antagonist to Final Fantasy 1. And in this trailer, Jeff Garland himself.
Merrick Garland, actually.
Larry! But, so they combine it in this trailer then, where they have it be Garland is in his throne room, and you go in there, and then he attacks the Warriors of Light, as they cheekily call themselves, and he goes, I've become chaos. So it's weird to see the final boss in the opening trailer. I'm curious to see if it's going other places beyond that. But like, it's really fascinating to see a reinterpretation of Final Fantasy I's relatively bare bones plot, because like even in that trailer, it's really funny. Like one of those characters, he just never stops talking about like, I'm here to destroy chaos. All I care about is taking out chaos. Me, chaos means I'm gonna fight him. Don't get me in the same room as chaos. It's like even in one trailer, he just keeps reiterating like, yeah, I guess
started on chaos.
That's all you can really do, buddy. But yeah,
and then his friend is like, yeah, we're the Warriors of Light or whatever. I'm the cheeky sidekick.
Who looks like a male version of Lightning. And so that's the crazy thing. And they had a big flash letting you know that Nomura from Square did the character design for these characters that are like, one of the guys just looks like the junk dealer from Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, he just looks like a guy in there. And he's like,
why would that character stand out to you?
I don't know. He just came to mind.
About the junk dealer?
He just came to mind a little bit. But like this guy is just like ripping corpses. Like every enemy he destroys and he's on the ground, he's like, I'll show you one step closer to chaos, and rips the thing's jaws open. He's brutal.
He doesn't like chaos. I don't know why you're confused.
But he's causing so much.
He wants order.
I see. Still a lot of things are mysterious about this game. Curious about learning more. They show like a collapsing pillar in the trailer as well. It's like, okay, is it going to be kind of shortcuts? Is that hinting at more of a Souls-like? In that flash card where they said, or the title card, or whatever the hell you want to call it, credits card, where they said that Nomura is going to be designing the characters, they said that they listed the game's director, who's not from Team Ninja, but the game's director is actually from Square, and they were the battle planner for Final Fantasy 13. But this is their first time actually directing something. So it is more of a fusion with Square than I thought based on those leaks originally.
Good combat in 13.
We'll have to check it out. I'm curious to see if that demo is playable. But yeah, Stranger of Paradise, of course, is the name of that
10 minutes to go. We'll see when I'm done with this.
You're downloading those corrupted files, Kyle.
Jeffem.
Bringing chaos to my console.
What would you like to talk about, Jeffem?
Yeah, I'll throw out one on behalf of Leo.
Oh, yeah.
Who seemed very excited to play Halo Infinite's multiplayer. Which was kind of the bigger of the Halo Infinite reveals. They started with some kind of single player stuff that was like, take a look at the new Halo because we've been reworking on it. And it was just kind of Master Chief floating around inside a derelict spaceship, like bumping into lots of stuff.
Well, to be fair, there was some interesting Cortana stuff there where they basically have a phony fake Cortana, and then Kyle, I don't know what you took from that, but basically there's some confusion about the mission.
A lot of win rare jokes of how to unzip her is what we took away from it.
Yeah, but it seems like they deleted
didn't
Cortana.
Play Halo 5, so
okay.
Like, I don't really know where I am.
I feel like No, go ahead.
One little thing was like him moving through 0G into like a gravity area, like moving through something. Like I would love to see that as like a gameplay thing. I think that'd be really cool. But that might just be cutscene stuff.
Yeah. I think that this trailer, which I don't think showed a ton of like actual gameplay, definitely felt more pitched to like, oh, okay, like we showed off the fact that this is like an open world Halo thing. But I think this trailer was definitely more directed to like, oh yeah, no, it's also gonna have kind of like that set piece, like epic, like movie like feel that Halo has, where it's like you're going through something that feels momentous and not just kind of like generated, and it's like here's encounter number 17 or whatever that we've devised in the open world, and it's gonna have these like story beats. That this felt like that trailer kind of addressing some of the feedback from that previous.
Yeah, like if you were worried that Master Chief wouldn't float into a lot of junk, this trailer's got you covered.
But the cool part, Jeffem, was
then they showed multiplayer and it looked really cool.
It did.
It looked kind of like classic multiplayer with some extra, little abilities. The grappling gun looks really cool. They had like a samurai Master Chief. That was super weird.
That was odd. Maybe it's just showing off a larger range.
Like a cosmetic. I didn't read into that.
Yeah, probably. But
I wonder if that's not just like a thing among the Halo community of like, oh, they brought back this suit, like that's really cool. Because I remember there being some interesting sets like in Halo 3 or something where it's like the Halo Recon stuff, or if they're kind of alluding to like there will be rare sets that you can earn that are purely cosmetic, but set you apart in Halo matches.
Yeah, and the big thing is they'd already announced this before, but kind of reiterating is still a bold move that this is going to be completely free to play on Xbox and PC. The multiplayer. I'm sorry. Yeah, when it comes out in holiday 2021, they didn't have a release date there, but
a lot of cool moments that aren't tied to a cutscene or something, where it's like he blows someone up and he like shoots his grappling gun and grabs the gun out of the sky and pulls it to him and immediately starts shooting it. Like a lot of stuff that if it happened to you during a gameplay match, you'd be like, that looks super awesome.
Totally.
And I actually did it myself. I just, it wasn't a quick time event or anything like that. If multiplayer is that kind of dynamic with all the different abilities and stuff that he was pulling off, then that looks like it'll be really fun. And it looks kind of old school, which is what everyone was kind of taking away from the single player stuff that we've seen so far. This reminded me of like the community get-togethers that we did with the original Halo not too long ago.
For the deepest dive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally. Like
want to jump in.
It's amazing when during this press conference, it felt like a big triumphant moment. First of all, when they had the Halo announcer jump in just during a trailer for multiplayer, which was fun. But then also it's just like this whole section of the trailer was dedicated to, hey, it's time for a little capture the flag. And it's like, oh yeah, I had a lot of good times in my life playing capture the flag in Halo. And so it's crazy just for that to be the star of the show. It got me. And like you said, it's cool to see somebody like Leo, who's not the biggest Halo fan in the world, but likes, Rainbow Six Siege and a lot of online shooters, to have his head be turned and be like, okay, yeah, I'll absolutely check this out. I think it's going to be huge when it launches.
Yeah, and he said like that's going to make it so much easier for him to actually get his friends on board and have everyone play it because it's free for everyone.
Yeah, I think this shows a lot of confidence in that mode. I think I definitely feel like there's a chance that looking back on it, like the multiplayer will be the thing that people take away from this game. Like even if the campaign ends up being kind of disappointing or whatever, I think people will remember Halo Infinite's multiplayer. And I think like making it free to play, I think could be seen as a sign of weakness of like, we don't think it's part of our packaging, but I think maybe this is like, well, if it's on Game Pass, that maybe makes things like murky or whatever, but let's just kind of clear everything up. You can just hop into Halo multiplayer, and if you want to play the campaign, then you can pay for Game Pass that way.
Especially, I mean, it's really forward-looking, just looking at the success of something like Warzone. But then it's also crazy in comparison that, like, this holiday, we're going to have Battlefield 2042 released, where it's $70 for just multiplayer, and then we're going to have Halo Infinite completely free-to-play multiplayer. I'm not saying Battlefield 2042 won't be worth it, but that's just going to be an interesting point for consumers of, like, okay, here are my options. Yeah, I think I'll go for the free one with a bigger name in some cases. Did that Battlefield footage stand out to you, Jeff? And they also showed a bunch of gameplay there.
A little bit. I mean, that was better than the trailer that they showed the day before, couple at Keeley's thing. At least this was more straightforward actual gameplay. It's weird because, like, kind of the big set piece things is like you're fighting in this huge city. You have all the vehicles that you expect from a Battlefield. It's like twice the size. It's like 128 players or whatever. And then there's just like a giant ass tornado that goes through, and I'm wondering how that works from a gameplay perspective, because it looks like you're having a kind of regular Battlefield, tug of war style conquest battle, and then just everyone gets sucked up by a tornado because it's huge and it just like sweeps through the entire battlefield. I don't know what that does to balance or anything like that, but it certainly looked visually impressive.
Yeah, I think the size and scope of those maps seems really daunting. I'm not entirely sure what a match of that game looks like. Is it like now you have to, like, the capture zones constantly move or something, and now everyone has to head to the top of this building, and that's how that stuff the tornado factors in, of like, well, it wasn't there at the beginning of the match, but we weren't anywhere close to that building. And so as the match progressed, it's just like the everyone just kind of moves all across the battlefield in kind of the structured way, which is what I feel like might end up being the thing. But it seems like, how do you mix this kind of set piece design with the idea that it's like, this is my 10th match that I've played today. Yep, there's a tornado again. How does that stuff, even out over the course of, a bunch of matches?
Well, it's interesting too that like their messaging is ever-changing maps. It's like, yeah, we've had changing maps in Battlefield before. It's kind of what you're known for, which is destructibility. And the fact that we haven't really seen that be showcased yet is a little alarming when they're talking about ever-changing maps. They show like, yeah, there's a rocket over here in this map, and then it can take off. How about that, Battlefield fans? Like, okay, but how about if I could take it apart piece by piece instead?
Yeah. And what is the point of the rocket taking off? Is there going to be like a conquest checkpoint in the rocket, and then it's like, see ya, suckers, we're in space now. You're not getting this one back.
Yeah, that's how it works.
But the tornado one, like they showed some scenes from later, and it looked like the entire city was buried practically towards the end of it. And it's like I don't know, like I don't know what I would be doing at that point in that match. Just like trying to figure out where I am in a sandstorm.
Yeah. Suriel, what are you most excited to talk about? What's left on this docket?
I feel like maybe Cal will talk about my other one, but I think Babylon's Fall is probably the other thing that like I came away pretty excited about, which is interesting because the moment I went on Twitter, it seemed like Square Enix as a whole had committed a war crime with that conference.
People were angry.
Yeah,
they called it a living game, which is like usually you
a live service game,
it, right?
Yeah,
live service.
Yeah, so it was interesting. Like I came away from that pretty positive as someone who saw the initial reveal for Babylon's Fall wasn't like, okay, it looks like a platinum game, but I'm not sure what is interesting about this one in particular. And I think that making it co-op and making it look more like it looks more like an RPG than like some of the other games, I think is kind of the hook that I needed. And it looked cool, like a lot of combos and stuff that they pulled off, and like the way it looks like there will be more distinct classes than have been in platinum games. So I like that they're leaning into the RPG stuff. But yeah, like online, everyone's like, well, it looks like garbage, and they said the words live service, which is an immediate cause for everyone to sound off all the alarms.
Honestly, I know people can accuse us of being, snarky, which we generally don't like to be here at MinnMax, but like in our reaction videos, hopefully we keep it to a minimum. But like, I've really been off of Twitter all day. And then just in the brief window before starting this podcast, I just opened up Twitter, and it's just like an avalanche of people. This sucks, this sucks, this sucks. On the best gaming day of the year. It's like, come on, everybody. Surely there are great things to talk about. If there aren't, you don't got to tweet about it. It's totally fine. No one's asking you.
I feel like I tend to sometimes hop onto onto that negativity of just like, well, what didn't I like about this stuff? But yeah, it felt really weird because it's like what I saw about Babylon's Fall looked really cool, and then everyone is just, I think it's a combination of like it's been a really long time, since we saw that game, and I think kind of anticipation builds that way. Obviously we all saw that with Elden Ring, how people lost their minds about that. But this feels like they just kind of like they did not read the room, it seems like, and people just wanted another single player platinum game, and they didn't get that. So I also think that like the live service game, it just becomes like a red hair or like not a red flag for a lot of people immediately. And I don't know that we've pinned down what that means on a per game basis. And I know that it means like,
for me, it means a game without an ending. For me, it means a commitment as opposed to like a fun story. So that's why it's a turnoff for me. I don't get the sort of complaining about the visuals of it. I thought it looked cool. That's weird to me. The live service stuff, that is a thing for me where I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna really go for this one.
Yeah, I think that like even in the worst case scenario though, like I think something like Avengers, right, which is like the thing that everyone kind of points to is like this is a failure of a live service game, right? I think people just kind of feel like, well, I mean, I guess my take on it is like you don't necessarily have to marry every live service game, like even Avengers had a point where it's like, okay, you finish the campaign, you can stop playing, like, and I think this to me feels like this is just going to get a game that gets regular updates. And I don't think they'll lean too hard into like microtransactions, like, hey, everything, like in order to play this content, you have to pay money like on a daily basis or something like that. But like, yeah, like I'm pretty sure that game is going to have a definitive like end in a way that's like most, kind of people who don't want to keep up with it will be able to jump off. And I think
I think they did say something along the lines of like an infinite or like a journey that never ends. They had some specific wording about that. That kind of implied no finish line.
Babylon won't ever fall, I think is the new name of the game.
I can see that. I think like I said, I think that just means that like, hey, we'll keep updating this game with content that is relevant and stuff, and add new things to do.
Right.
But I don't think that necessarily means that like if you go into this expecting to have like a isolated experience that you'll never see that, and so there's no reason to play. Like I think this game will have a point at which you hit credits.
You know what I'm really missing from E3 is kind of the E3 stuff. No, I feel like with E3, it was always so great to have all of these interviews lined up with press. And like after the big reveal and the big press conference trailer and all that stuff, there would be like trickling info. And now when everything's so contained and remote, you're not getting that like, oh, IGN got this fragment of a quote about this feature in Babylon's Fall. There's more clarification on this, like trickling throughout the week. It's just kind of like now you only have the one spike on the graph. And maybe there's some more details on the company website, and deal with it, suckers. So hopefully, publishers and PR are lining up interviews around this time as well to kind of get some more info about some of these question marks.
There was some sort of unified portal where people could set up those kinds of appointments and talk to developers, and that worked.
I can't think of what it would be. Yeah, honestly, I mean,
that's a cool idea. They should do like where you can make your own avatar and stuff. That would probably make it a better system.
I think we might have to workshop that one a little bit. I don't see how that's in any way relevant.
Honestly, I signed up for that, like for being media at E3. I've gotten a couple emails. I haven't clicked through a single one. It doesn't look like there's anything. Has anybody done anything with that?
I didn't sign up.
Okay. Well, hey, on the flip side of Square making a live living game, Kyle, they announced something today that is the opposite of that in an intriguing way when it shouldn't be.
A dead game?
You picking up what I'm putting? Yeah, you were amazed that like, oh, this game that looks like it should be a multiplayer living game is a single player dead game. My kind of game. We just
Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy is on my list of games to talk about. Yeah, you guys were berating me constantly on our reaction stream. I kept asking, "Is this Marvel? Is this a Marvel expansion?"
I realized I
don't want this to be a Marvel expansion. I just want this to be a standalone thing, which it is. And I like the idea. I like Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm a cool guy that only learned about them through the films, but they're probably my favorite Marvel films. I think those two. And I love the idea of just playing as one of those people. I like the idea of just a campaign where you play as Star-Lord and your buddies are along for the ride. Like that's kind of what I want from Marvel games. I want the Spider-Man approach. Like that's my personal preference, you know?
And it's really crazy to have Eidos Montreal developing this new Guardians of the Galaxy game, who have done a lot of support and work on Avengers. And it's like they took kind of the tech and looks like some of the combat from Marvel's Avengers, and now are making this single player game also about a team. So they're leaning heavily on, team attacks and kind of coordinated and syncing up and stuff that way. But I think it's a really smart approach. And yeah, it turns heads for a lot of people that are more in the Spider-Man camp than the living game Marvel's Avengers camp. But the game still runs into that.
And the story choices are kind of interesting. Like that's a interesting idea, like giving you some control over how Star-Lord directs the team,
That stood out to me. It's so odd because that was a big selling point in their demo, which was a surprisingly long demo here at the Square Enix press conference. Jeff, and by the way, they announced a Guardians of the Galaxy game. I know you didn't catch that one, but
yeah, I didn't see it. Is it do the likenesses look like, well, I guess it's just the one.
No, they're original. They're more based on the comic book look.
Yeah. Did they do a better job of it than they did
they're
with
not
Avengers?
Cartoony.
It's Avengers-esque, but because there's less
that's
humans.
The reason I kept asking, is this an expansion, is because they look like they would fit in that Marvel mold. Okay. But then it turned out it is not. It is a single player game.
Okay.
But it is that really odd thing of, Guardians of the Galaxy, which now in terms of Marvel branding just means, James Gunn's taste in music, and James Gunn's sense of humor. Like it should just be called Guardians of the James Gunn at this point now for this entire franchise. Just because even with Telltale's game, that was such a weird...
By the way, they should jump on this and re-release Lollipop Chainsaw now.
Honestly,
like, by the way, this is a James Gunn thing.
Right.
You didn't play it when it came out,
but yeah. So it's that weird thing of there's the Guardians of the Galaxy is the series now where we're going to have some great music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s blasting there. And I know that with Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy, which, what was that, 2017? I feel like it didn't come out that long ago. They also had a bunch of music running throughout that. And apparently James Gunn got to go in there and actually double check the music they were using just to make sure they weren't eating the lunch of where he wants to use music for the future of Guardians of the Galaxy films. And so this is also that weird thing where it's like, okay, it's very James Gunn inspired, but just off enough to kind of be alarming, and the sense of humor and the voice acting seems okay, seems north of okay is probably the best way to put it. But it's cool that they're taking this approach.
Yeah.
Cool.
I want to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing too, maybe just because I played at least the first episode of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Telltale game, but it did strike me that it was so odd in this demo that one of the big things they were emphasizing was player choice and dialogue trees. And there's even a moment where you choose to throw Rocket across like a canyon, and then it pops up and says, Rocket is furious that you threw him. He will remember that. And it's like, this is the most Telltale thing, which is so weird because we just played a version of Guardians of the Galaxy that was all about this character will remember that. But it's cool, at least for Eidos Montreal, to be leaning a little bit more in that direction. And that's coming out October 26th, 2021, Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's see. Kyle, anything else you want to hit here, man?
Yeah, I want to talk. I don't have a ton to say about it, but Replaced looks really cool. I feel like that's maybe another little bit of a hipster pick, but it's just like, it kind of reminded me of like Narita Boy, or what was the one that we played earlier this year, Hanson, that you recommended to me?
Oh, Aliha.
Aliha, yeah. It kind of looks like that, but like sort of like one console generation up or something, but it's just like this really cool pixel look, a really cool like cyberpunk, which is like, all the rage right now, or a lot of stuff is cyberpunk, but it looks really cool. I looked up the developer, Sad Cat Studios.
Yeah.
Not a lot to their name, but on their website, a little cat will pop up and you can click it and it meows. So that's cool.
That seems right. Honestly, though, I think out of any
development,
I think out of like any game I've seen so far, I think this art style is maybe the most shocking. I'm trying to think about everything.
Like,
yeah.
When I watch these conferences, like there's always kind of like a thing that's like, oh, this is the one I know I'm excited about because it's the one that I immediately went and rewatched the trailer. And for me, it was like I pulled up Somervillle and rewatched it more closely, and I pulled up Replaced and watched it more closely because I just wanted to look at it again.
It feels like it is similar in aesthetic to a lot of like the Octopath stuff, where it's like very kind of like flat textures and like almost pixelated with a lot of like really powerful special effects. But this feels like it's okay. The graphics have a little bit more fidelity than like retro, right? They just look pixelated versus purely retro. But then you do also have all these like effects layered on top of that, which I think is really it's a really cool aesthetic.
Yeah, and they say it's a console launch exclusive for Xbox. It's an action platformer coming in 2022. So yeah, Replaced. If you want to look up one game that has really striking art. Yeah, one that's kind of
and don't just look at screens of it because I feel like you really have to see it in action.
Yeah.
To fully appreciate it. That one looked very impressive.
Yeah, on that note of kind of that new heyday of HD 2D art, I'm going to butcher the name and I apologize, but Eiyuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes is also one of the best looking games that I've seen. And it's so funny because it started out, we're just like, okay, what is this JRPG? There's just JRPG characters popping up with, still images of them introducing these characters. And I was like, it seems fine. It's coming from 505. That seems fine. Then you see the gameplay and realize that, oh, this is the Suikoden spiritual successor, where the creators of Suikoden 1 and 2 spun off. And this was a Kickstarter. It very much is in the vein of like Bloodstained, which 505 also published spiritually, I think. But just to have like a new, more action-focused Suikoden game from the original creators that looks this good, and it has still that 2D art, but roaming around in a 3D world. And when you zoom in on characters more, you can kind of see the pixels. It looks incredible. And it's from Rabbit and Bear Studios is the name of that one. And that's the one where they say it's coming in 2022, but then much like Bloodstained, they have Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which Suriel, you speculated might be more of like an action-focused version of it.
It's like side-scrolling action game, I think it looks like.
Yeah, and that's coming 2023. But yeah, definitely one to keep on the radar if you're a fan of Suikoden, old JRPGs in general, because yeah, some of that animation just looked awesome. Let's see, Kyle, anything else you want to hit up?
I'm excited for Riders Republic from Ubisoft. Get a couple of Ubisoft stuff in there.
Yeah, what about that one in particular?
It just looks like kind of zany and crazy. There's like downhill biking, which is like a weird, it's like a genre I like in video games. I like extreme downhill biking, but there's also snowboarding and like jetpacks and stuff like that. It just looks like multiplayer. You're just in a big open world and you can kind of choose your sort of way you want to race. And it just had a lot of SSX vibes in it, just in terms of the color and the way the rails looked and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that was one of those ones that I was like, didn't expect. Even when the trailer started, I was like, oh, okay, cool, extreme sports game. But by the end, I was like, I really want to play this. You know,
it reminds me. This is such a stupid reference. It reminds me of like One Extreme and Two Extreme. Those games on the PlayStation, where it's like so many different sports all packed into this one game. And like the one that really got me in Riders Republic was like the jetpacks in particular, having just like an army. Looks like dozens and dozens and dozens of people in like their wingsuit jetpacks, like flying through canyons and stuff. Like, that is so cool. And they say,
I also wanted to say, genuinely, I think one of my bigger sort of like, whoa, I didn't expect this at all, big surprise is the Avtar game from Ubisoft.
Totally with you.
It just totally left field. That franchise is a weird thing that, you know, the next films are actively being worked on and have been for like a decade, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like, I do like that universe, and I would like someone to make an interesting video game about it, and it looked cool, and it's like, I never would have, that bingo card, it was like, never would have shown up for me. New Avatar game.
I mean, they announced they're working on it a while ago, so this is from
I just totally missed that. Okay.
Totally. But this is the team that made The Division. They're also working on a Star Wars game, and so when they teased, like, working on a big new property, here's something in the Snowdrop engine, I was all in on thinking it was going to be Star Wars, and then freaking going to Pandora. Yeah, so this one's called Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and it was a cinematic trailer. You didn't really learn too much. Everybody was kind of doing Avatar-y things, riding around on new creatures, taking down the man,
waving their ponytails around.
Oh, just waiting for someone to entangle that ponytail with. There was an avalanche of hate that hit the chat and on the internet in general when they revealed the trailer for this. There is this weird backlash towards Avatar that I don't think is justified, Kyle.
I get the reaction of like, it's weird that it hasn't had a cultural impact despite literally being the most successful film of all time. Like that is true, but it's like, it's a good movie. Like if you go watch, there's a reason it was really successful. It's cool, you know?
I think it's a go-to example of just like, this is all special effects and there's not a ton of like, I think the reason people knock it is because like there's just not anything memorable about the plot or the story or the characters. I didn't really like Avatar. It was like a fun experience watching it in 3D and stuff, but I don't think like it just doesn't come up in conversation as like a thing that is like anything other than its moment in time. Is like, this was when 3D, everyone was going all in on 3D, and just like everyone was like, this was made to be an event. And I think most people came up with it. It's like, oh, it was really cool, or but no one has like this like diehard passionate love for any aspect about like Avatar in a really strong way. Outside from like, you know, how there were stories about
right now.
How people were like, I want to go to Pandora. Like I'm upset.
No,
you haven't seen Hanson's Avatar tattoo.
I think Serial's like honestly right. I think the thing that just always bugs me is like, people just treat it as an awful movie.
Yeah,
it's like, guys, it's a good movie.
The
like,
backlash is towards
Serial
popularity.
Didn't like it, and that's totally fine. You're allowed. I that's totally cool. But I think if people were to revisit it, which they will in the coming years, I think there will be a resurgence of appreciation for it. You know?
Yes, we talked about it in the stream, but it's not the backlash towards the film; it's the backlash towards the film's popularity and towards that one article that was written on CNN about. People are sad they're not living on Pandora. It's like, whoever wrote that article is a freaking genius. Like, you got 3.5 quotes, and now everybody cites it as a reason why Avatar sucks.
Sure. But like, also, I think there is kind of like I don't know, this maybe happens to a smaller degree with Marvel movies of like, stop putting this in my face. And I think even though there hasn't really been a ton of stuff, I think this is the shadow of like, oh, James Cameron is working on 4 more Avatar movies, whether you like it or not. Like, it feels like this is like a prime kind of outlet for the frustration about that. I was like, who asked for another Avatar movie? Definitely not 4 more. This feels like it's adding on top of that. I also don't want to see that. Yeah. Also, the Avatar game wasn't great, so.
Yeah, there's that previous Ubisoft Avatar game, which I think is totally fair. I think if the Avatar, it's also a condition of watching this trailer. I was like, oh, look, there's like more creatures. It'd be cool to see more aliens and stuff and just see those designs. And then I was really soaking in it, and I was like, is it possible that I think Avatar's a good movie, but just not a very exciting world? And that's the problem of like, now you can go back to the world of Avatar. And it's like, I was okay on the world. I think just what I like about that movie is just like the pacing and the structure. And yes, you can say it's cliche and it's been done and it's Fern Gully all over again. I understand that. But it's like, I think that's what I'm really passionate about is I think just as a movie, it works a lot better than as a world that I want to live in.
I mean, you kind of summed it up when you were like, "Oh yeah, your ponytail's flapping, and you can't wait to entangle it with another." Like,
we remember that's a thing. Remember they have tail sex.
Yeah, but no one likes it. No one that's not like.
No one's like, that's a really good move on their part. That's smart sci-fi.
Yeah.
There's
the
it's
actual
like the Force,
Avatar,
right?
like,
yeah.
I'll say the actual Avatar part of like going into the larger body, that was the most interesting sci-fi stuff to it. But the whole like weeping tree of memory and all that stuff, I don't.
If you think it's safe to say that everyone has their own reasons for not liking Avatar.
If you're coming up in this podcast insulting the good name of Awa the tree, I think is that the tree's name?
I just saw
Avatar
Avatar a couple of weeks ago. Again.
What was the name of Sigourney Weaver's character?
I hate this crap.
Dr. Kramer.
But you saw it weeks ago. I was talking to Jeff, and specifically someone who watched it recently.
Look, you're lucky I can remember she was in it.
Please, I could ask you about any movie that you saw a couple weeks ago. Kyle, what's the main character's name in... What's that? Millers versus Machines.
Finding Nemo.
What? No, come on. What is it? Versus the Machines, that good animated film. What's that called?
Which animated film?
Is it Millers versus Machines?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, give me the main character's first name. Exactly.
Cece? Danny.
Game, set, match. Anyways, to completely go 180 on all this, after that Avatar trailer launched,
guys, we've been talking an hour and a half about Avatar.
And we're going to go another hour and a half, damn it. But I went to the Avatar subreddit, which I believe I'm a mod for. And because I was just like, I wanted to see, like, what is the Avatar community saying about this trailer? There were like 3 comments. It was like, finally! Like, there was just like 0 buzz. And it's like, okay, that's a good sense of where we're at.
Should have done Star Wars.
But anyways, apparently this game's about journeying into the unknown western parts of Pandora. So it's basically the Forbidden West of the Avatar franchise. So please look forward to that. We have a lot more to talk about with E3. There's a lot more news to get to. That's what the bonus episodes of the MinnMax Show podcast are going to be all about. We'll be back on Tuesday with a big episode talking about Nintendo and more odds and ends, and then the regularly scheduled episode of the MinnMax Show podcast coming up on Wednesday if you're a Patreon supporter, and Thursday for everybody else. That one will be even more unpacking everything else we missed, because it's exciting times. E3, everybody. It's here, Serial.
E3.
Oh my God. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching or listening. Remember, if you're watching, you can always subscribe to the MinnMax Show podcast on your favorite podcast app. And if you want to support us on Patreon, we'd appreciate it. We always appreciate the help growing. If you support us at any tier, you can jump into the Discord where you can compete in Trivia Tower. The Grand Round.
Round.
Thank you, Kyle. Happening this Sunday at 1 p.m. Central, so Sunday, June 20th. If you support us at any tier, you get access to the Discord. Then in that Discord, we have the fun community video game trivia where the last person standing in this video game trivia wins $1,000. $1,000. That's why it's called the Grand Round, everybody.
Tell the IRS.
So if you're looking
you could make an Avatar sequel with that kind of money.
Well, you could make one of the 4.
So if you're looking for a good reason to jump in, now's a great time. So we'd appreciate the support. And thank you to everybody who supports us at the $50 tier on Patreon. You know who I'm talking about. It's Alex Payne, Fixture Gaming, I Am 8-Bit, Best of the Rest Podcast, Call Me By Your Game Podcast, Mirko Arico-Torreno, Real AFTV, Zachary Pligge, BeatenDownBrian. Congratulations, BeatenDownBrian, on your Plague Tale sequel. We'll talk about it later. Mark Seliga, Ludwig Roque, Jawarhello, PrettyGoodPrinting.com, Andrew Uerkwitz, Andrew Vala, John Higby, Yarrow, Richard Smuts, Clint Farley, SpiralInYourEyes, Preetham Yarlagadda, Starkiller, Spider Dan, Purebred number 6, SlyckNic, Steve, Bamdad, and Jesse Vitelli. Thanks so much, everybody. Kyle, Serial, Jeff, thank you for being here. Let's talk again about games in the future. E3's here, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.